Hi, I'm Bree Stock, Master of Wine, and today we're going to be discussing sustainability in wine. There are a lot of challenges to making sustainable wine. In the US, it is a very large topic at the moment for sustainable practices, primarily in the vineyard, but also in the winery, as we start to become more aware of how processing aids and other procedures in the winery can be held in the wine and impact our bodies. The main place where we really talk about sustainability in the wine industry is primarily in the vineyard. That's because the vineyard holds so much in its soil, and the vine is a perennial plant that is going to be there continually. So it holds a lot in its trunk, in its, as it stores all of its carbohydrates and nutrients for the next growing season. Also, what's important for sustainability practices in the vineyard is the people who work in the vineyard and understanding how to protect or make the best working environment for vineyard workers, vineyard stewards, and also for the continued health of our growing region. Many growing regions, especially in the Pacific Northwest and California, are located on hillsides. Those vineyards really do impact all of the microclimate around them. When you think about what you're spraying either on the canopy of the vineyard or dropping through irrigation or spraying under the vine row, this all impacts what flows down the hillside into the creeks and rivers that are surrounding the vineyard itself, which then also impacts the biodiversity and the natural habitat of the environment, the region, and the vineyard. So sustainability practices are really important currently in a lot of wine growing regions, and they're becoming more important as consumers begin to understand sustainability practices in all of their food systems. Sustainability as a word is sort of a broad brushstroke word for the greater certification that then can be broken down into more and more extreme or more and more committed practices in the vineyard. I like to think that sustainability is really the foundation of where we would start with a environmentally friendly practice and a protecting of our region and our people. Sustainability certifications can still use systemic herbicides and fungicides in the vineyard, but what sustainability certifications really mean is that they're trying to meet people where they're at, meet growers where they're at, who may have been traditionally, conventionally farmed growers, and bring them up to the next level, which takes some time. So moving from a conventional system into a sustainable system where you're starting to wean the vineyard off of fertigation, fungicides, chemicals, glyphosate, herbicides in the soils and in the canopy in your spray programs. Things that are really more like steroids and juicing up the vines. That's what we're trying to move away from so that the vineyards can really be sustainable on their own. Sustainable practices also more refer to water management and also energy management in the vineyard as well, and also social equity programs as well. So sustainability covers a very large, broad brushstroke term for the wine industry. So if we're thinking more specifically for vineyards, where we would like to go from vineyards is up into organic or biodynamic or even regenerative organic certifications, which is the newest practice, which is really about soil health and carbon capture and also social equity programs as well. So There's a lot of challenges for vineyards adopting sustainability practices. The most challenging, I think, for wineries and vineyards is really understanding what the different certifications are and also how to work within those certifications and move up within the certifications. When you start these certification programs, to become certified so that you have accountability practices in place and that you're being able to list yourself as a certified organic farmer with certified organic grapes. This means that from a vineyard or wine grower perspective, you're really having to invest in the time that it takes to work with the certifiers, fill out a lot of paperwork, and really keep track of exactly what you're spraying or putting into the vineyard. And that means that every single product that you put into the vineyard has to be certified organic to begin with. And this can be a real challenge at certain times, and especially as more vineyards begin to adopt organic certifications, we do have supply problems in the industry as well. So staying on top of supply problems is a challenge as well, but also the cost of certification, and for small growers, just the time that it really takes to fill out the certification paperwork is the biggest challenge to adoption for a lot of these practices in regions. Sustainability practices do differ the world over. However, you can generally say globally that if there's a sustainability certification, that certification is going to be the lowest level of sustainability in that region. And that still means in most of those regions, whether you're talking about New Zealand or Australia or South Africa or France, that sustainable on a label means that growers can still access and use in their vineyard some systemic fungicides and herbicides. But the ideal is that they will be working their way out of these systemic sprays and moving into organic or biodynamic practices and organic certified sprays. So it really is more of a global, sustainable, broad brushstroke word for vineyards and wineries. When you get into Europe, there's a lot more easy access to organic and sustainable practices. And then the other thing that you see more of is organic wine on European wine labels, because they have different standards when it comes to sulfur use than what the US has. So very few US wines can actually be labeled as organic wine, because organic wine in the US must be less than 100 parts per million of sulfur. And sometimes that naturally occurs during fermentation, but in Europe, they don't have sulfur standards that apply in that manner to organic wine. So there's a little bit of a disadvantage to US wines and wineries being able to utilize the organic wine label on wines, which is why you see a lot more European wines labeled as organic wine, even though if you were to compare most US wines from minimal intervention or natural producers, or even just small wineries in good quality areas, you would generally find that they would have the same or less amounts of sulfur as French, Italian, and other European wines. I think that sustainability is really important to a lot more people now because of what we're seeing happening in our climate in terms of the erratic nature of our climate, and also seeing the fluctuation in nutrients in our fruit when it comes into the winery. From a personal perspective, I first really noticed the difference when I was a wine buyer and tasting through these wines that were labeled as biodynamic or organic. And in blind tasting sessions, I would be tasting through wines and selecting wines that were really resonating with me as having a lot of character, a lot more complexity, just more interesting wines, and wines that had a sort of naturalness or energy to them, that they didn't feel stripped and flattened, as a lot of conventional wines can feel. And so it was only after I started looking back at my notes and looking through my blind tastings that I realized that all of the wines that I gravitated towards or rated very highly were wines that were made from organic or biodynamic grapes and had minimal intervention in the winery. So generally not having, added or packaged yeasts added to them, not having tannins added to them, not having mega purple added to them, and also not being, filtered with, gum arabic or other, plastics. So there was a lot more substance to wines that had minimal intervention and had also been farmed organically or biodynamically. And that was really where my passion for sustainability and beyond really began, and also for minimal intervention wines. Unfortunately, like many things, you're going to have to know the producer or be going to a reliable local wine store that has, a very good wine selector making these selections, and talking to them about what wines are organic, what wines are farmed naturally, what wines are made in a minimal intervention way. Generally, when you go to the supermarket, there's very little information apart from maybe a tag on the shelf that gives you a point score, or if they have an organic or natural section in their wine aisle, then that's where you're going to find those wines. On the European wines, they often have organic wine listed on them, but in the US, it's very difficult to get those really communicated on the label effectively. The other thing that you can do in the US is look for sustainability certifications on the back label. The trouble is that there are several sustainability certifications and organic certifications and regenerative certified organic certifications. So these are all very confusing when you see a list of them on the back label, and a lot of them are just really logos. And so unless you're very familiar with the CCOF label or the ROC label, which is the regenerative organic certification label, then you're really not going to know which is which. So it's still very much about knowing either the producer, having a good relationship with the wine buyer at your local retail store. And that's one of the reasons independent retail is so very important, because all of these, small growers and wines that are organically made and minimally intervention made are usually in these, higher end, smaller retail stores where they're being hand selected. And you don't really get as much one-on-one, caretakering in the supermarket aisles. Sustainability needs to be the thought of the future and needs to be a continued commitment, because it's no longer just a conversation about the environmental health of the vineyard. It needs to be a conversation about the health of the vineyard stewards, about the health of your business, about the health of the consumers. And so sustainability is now just a baseline, and really moving up into more serious commitments is where the future for high quality wine production is.